Welcome to my weekly podcast, Later That Same Life. I'm Larry Fedoruk. Each week, topics, discussions, stories from our lives.
Season 5, Chapter 7.
Guns and Conservatism.
Guns, Conservatism.
Americans make up about 4% of the world's population, but own over 46% of the world's guns. The highest percentage of civilian gun ownership in the world is in the United States of America. By far, Americans make up 4% of the world's population but own over 46% of the world's guns. There are more guns in America than there are Americans in America. Every man, woman, and child in the United States could own a gun, and you'd still have about 70 million guns left over, in case they need extras. Like, if some immigrants break into your house, or the Russians suddenly land in Texas. That's not me saying those things, that's just me trying to figure out the American thought process, why they own so many guns. This makes perfect sense historically, especially if you understand their history correctly. Not the marketing or retelling or rewriting of their history, but the actual history. There is this misnomer that the United States was formed for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That is in their Declaration of Independence. In fact, this breakaway republic was born out of mistrust, fear, and the protection of wealth. The rich, slave-owning founding fathers didn't think those words would play that well, so they changed mistrust to life, fear to liberty, and wealth to happiness. After that, they began drafting a constitution, a document that would set out the rules of the republic. A nice idea. The Constitution begins, "We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America." Beautiful! What a country! The Constitution has 7 articles, several subsections. It's about 4,500 words in all. They weren't limited to 140 characters. They worked hard, stayed up late, and in 1788 signed off on and ratified the U.S. Constitution. They even had it framed. I believe that's why they are called the framers of the Constitution. It took over 3 years before James Madison stood up and said, yeah, fellas, we didn't say anything about, free speech. Damn it, George, I thought you were going to do that. Hey, why is it always up to me? Well, it's too late now, anyway. It's ratified and framed and everything. I got it. Well, we'll take free speech and tack it on and call it an amendment. Does this mean we have to call Betsy Ross? No, not mending, amending. Jesus Christ, Franklin, were you even listening? And so it was that in 1791, the first amendment of this new Constitution, it reads, "Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances." Nice. Well, then they just got amendment happy. And one of the founding fathers probably said, hey, I don't want anybody hassling me about my guns. So within days they passed the Second Amendment. Here's how it goes. "A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." Okie dokie. Hey, what about that shit we said about, the right for people to peaceably assemble? Won't guns kind of mess with that? Oh, just sign it. Stop causing problems. You know, the British might be coming again any day now. They continued to nuance their hallowed Constitution and Bill of Rights over the years. But historically, the first two things they thought of over 230 years ago was an American's right to shoot off his mouth and to shoot off a gun. These have been the American priorities for well over 2 centuries. And today they lead the world in gun ownership. Oh, big surprise. There have been 33 amendments passed in U.S. history, only 27 ratified. But they have never addressed the inherent problems with those first 2. I can say what I want and shoot off a gun. Hey, why mess with perfection? I am suggesting that many of these amendments were brought about of their time. I mean, one amendment banned booze, and then another one brought it back. Maybe some of these amendments no longer apply to the modern world. Tops among those the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. It may have solved some problems back in 1791, but in 2022 it's proved to have caused more problems. Mass shootings, a uniquely American problem. Over all these years and still to this day, they have gun lobbies and uninformed, possibly lazy, possibly both, politicians who openly state that it is their duty to defend the Constitution blindly, instead of saying, hey, maybe we need some new amendments. Check out your opening paragraph of your Constitution about the perfect union with justice and domestic tranquility. Why aren't you defending that part? None of that is happening, and it's not happening because Americans are rooted in being loudmouths with guns. That's how they interpret free speech and the right to bear arms. We are loudmouths with guns, and we are because the law says we can. Remember that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is code, in my opinion, code for mistrust, fear, and the pursuit and protection of wealth. The founding fathers did not trust the British, or the French for that matter. They feared losing their new way of life, and they put the American dollar above all else. This fear gave birth to racism, colonialism, the persecution of perceived enemies, and they quickly gave themselves the right to use guns to protect it all. That is the real foundation of the United States. And if you ever wonder how it got this bad, you can look to one group of people. They have a name. They are called conservatives. Conservatives. Those are some scary motherfuckers. I don't care if you're Donald Trump, Mitch McConnell, Doug Ford, Scott Moe, or Joe Schmo. If you have been drawn to the dark side, the conservative side, you're a scary motherfucker. Your greed and skewed values are what's holding the world back from true progress. Jesus, that can't be every conservative out there, can it? Well, maybe not. But if you're a casual conservative and you're not even sure why, I don't know, maybe your family was conservative, or you just hate Trudeau, perhaps it is time for you to understand where conservatism comes from. It comes from aristocracy, and aristocracy's unbending desire to hold on to their wealth, often at the expense of the working class. I mean, seriously, look it up. I don't want to get into a whole socio-economic history of the world here, but, hey, let's give it a shot. The Age of Enlightenment, 1600s, 1700s, early 1800s. There were events like the French Revolution and English Civil Wars. Kings and queens were falling, and a lot of the deep thinkers of the day were writing extensively about the preservation of the monarchy and the upper classes. They were offended by the concept of democracy. They felt that the people, peasants, were intellectually inferior. They couldn't rule themselves. They needed people of privilege to to reign over them. Well, democracy throughout Europe did catch on. And it was then that these conservatives turned to economics to make a case for how aristocracy could survive under democracy. In the late 1800s, the dominant school of thought was known as the labor theory of value. I'll oversimplify it, but basically it says that if you make something and then you sell it, the labor that made the product is what gives it the value, a value greater than the raw materials used to make it. Okay, makes sense. I took a tree and I made a wooden bench. The tree itself didn't have a particular value, but this bench, well, $20. That $20 should cover the cost of the tree and my labor. Labor. Peasants, the conservatives thought. The conservatives of the day argued that there was no value at all to a product, say my bench, until someone with $20 comes around to buy it. The value is not in the tree or in my labor, say the conservatives, but the man with the means to pay for it. The power was in the consumer, i.e., people with money. Talking about Edmund Burke here, an early architect of conservative thought. He further said that price is not dictated by labor. The price of something or its value, and he equated price and value as the same thing, is exactly and only what someone is willing to pay for it. Labor theory said labor adds value. Conservative Burke says it's what people with money are willing to pay that gives something its value. And therefore, the people with money, the people with the wealth and the means, must be protected in order to have a thriving economy. Your labor and any raw material you used only has a value to the degree that it satisfies the desires of the moneyed class, the aristocracy. It's capitalism, and we all believe in capitalism, right? Within capitalism, if we are going to accept that as our economic epitome, the wealthy hold a disproportionate degree of influence. So according to conservatism, they must be protected, coddled, and revered. That's if the world wants to continue to exist. Conservatism. Edmund Burke argued that this was not only moral, but that the wealthy deserved this influence, this higher position. He didn't think an aristocratic hierarchy was bad. He just thought the revolutions were about the wrong people being in charge. His solution was not kings and queens by birthright, and certainly not by this appalling democracy, because in democracy, everyone's vote is equal. No. He wanted a hierarchy where leaders of people were deserved of their position because of wealth and intellect. Success in capitalism gave you the right to rule the world. Those traditional monarchs, well, they became figureheads, and conservatism sought to make their influence as democracy-proof as they could. Edmund Burke is called the father of modern conservatism, but a lot of his basic principles have been around for centuries before him, and they have flourished long after. The root theories of conservatism have what's been called a royalist sentiment, and it's based on the ideas that all people are not created equal, and the world only works when power is bestowed upon the deserving. The deserving is defined by the influence of wealth. Conservatism. Influential conservative economist Joseph Schumpeter, who died like in 1950, believed, and this is not a direct quote, this is a summation, that captains of industry were the closest thing to monarchs in this new world. To reiterate, I'm not against capitalism, an economic system of fair market value for goods and services. I, like almost everyone, would like more money, and we would all enjoy the influence that comes with, even if it just means leaving a bigger tip and getting better service. I don't hate the rich. I just hate the uber rich. But here's the problem. We all pretend that conservatism, and I'm not talking about any named political party, just conservatism, we pretend that it's simply a different political point of view. It's not. I'm sick and tired of pretending, mincing words, smiling and faking it, that I respect your conservative opinion. I don't. Conservatism is dangerous. It's aristocratic. It's antique. It doesn't serve a modern world or its future. Conservatism is not about change. It's about protecting the status quo, sheltering the powerful, protecting the aristocracy from the evils of democracy or communism. Even they knew it was an antique concept. So in order to keep on doing this, they wrapped themselves in things like a national flag or religion, and religion's implied moral values. Conservatism stands up against social change, the right of women to vote, civil rights movement, equal rights amendment, same-sex marriage. Anytime the people have taken to the streets in an attempt to share power with other disadvantaged common people, it's the conservatives who fought them at every step of the way. As I said, look it up. Conservatives live in a way-back machine. It's conservatives who say things were better back when. Make America great again. How conservative you are directly correlates with how far back you'd like to go. Well, things were better before gay marriage. Things were better when women stayed at home and raised kids. Things were better when people of color knew their place. How far back do you want to go to prove how conservative you are? 230 years ago, conservatism said we should have guns. To cover their collective butts, conservatives recently have been disguising their core values. I'll give you an example. A far-right conservative party in this country calls themselves the People's Party of Canada. What people? An insane group of U.S. alt-right funded truckers called themselves a freedom convoy. What freedom were you missing? The right to be an asshole? Doug Ford wins in Ontario, first under the slogan "For the People," and then more recently with "Get it done." What people? Get what done?
Get her done.
Get her done. Great. We just elected Larry the Cable Guy. Actually, that would have been an improvement. All of these claims are to make you think that conservatism is somehow a people's grassroots movement. That's bullshit. Conservatism is from aristocracy and exists to this day to protect it, keep the rest of the people down. Conservatives say they are fiscally responsible. They're about ensuring that their wealthy friends stay wealthy. Got to maintain that aristocratic hierarchy. Some conservatives say they're all about limited government, which, if you think about it, translates into less representation for we the people, which again speaks to their core value that people are unequal and the inferior have to be ruled by the wealthy. And they are definitely against social progress of any kind. Does any of that sound like a people's party to you? Conservatives are conservative about everything except conservation. They don't believe in that at all. They will pave paradise to put up a parking lot. Canada has had a liberal government for almost 70 years of the 20th century and a good part of the 21st century. But I fear a growing sentiment of conservatism, extreme conservatism, and these aristocrats telling you that they're for the people. It's happening here. It's happening all over the world. I've been concentrating on the United States because they have the most guns. Conservatives will do anything to protect their aristocratic system, which right now means they're protecting their guns. The conservative founding fathers wrote that into law. Guns are a killing machine. They serve no other purpose whatsoever. Like I said, conservatives will do anything. They'll lie, they'll cheat. And if that doesn't work, they'll say the other guy is lying and cheating. And then get some guns and attacked the seat of U.S. government on January 6, 2021, to interrupt the peaceful transfer of power for the first time in the nation's history. One nation under siege. And call it what you will, GOP, guns-only party, Republicans, Proud Boys, alt-right. The common denominator is conservatism. It's not only holding us back, it's killing us, possibly with a gun. We're at war. By the way, back to Edmund Burke. He believed that war was a good way to eliminate the weak. And when war is not possible, capitalism will suffice. Is it possible that the conservatives see the 19 children who died in Uvalde, Texas, and the thousands of others in mass shootings as the price Americans must pay in order to protect the Second Amendment? I'll bet they do. I'm betting that's exactly how they see it. In that same state of Texas, you can be arrested, criminally prosecuted, and jailed if you so much as even advise anyone who is getting an abortion. You know, pro-life. But if you instigate, radicalize, or even promote a gun culture, and then some guy shoots up a school, well, that's not a crime. That's conservatism. And how about that Uvalde Police Department? They put the yellow in the yellow rose of Texas. Conservatives scare the crap out of liberals. It's what they do, and they're good at it. And liberals are terrible at fighting conservatism. They just don't know how to do it. The best ideas so far are to talk about a better future and common sense. And that just doesn't seem to cut it. Conservatives are the elite while saying they are for the people. Liberals are for the people, but are constantly accused of elitism. If this is the era of identity politics, a lot of conservatives these days carrying fake ID. How crazy is this world? If you do not think you are any of the things I've associated with conservatism, but you consider yourself a conservative, guess what? You are those things. At least that's what you support. For gosh sakes, at least own up to it as your leaders take us all down in flames. Like I said earlier, I'm just tired of pretending that it's okay to be a conservative. It's not. I just may be a faint cry in the wilderness, but better that than to stay silent. And the people who need to hear this and take it to heart probably won't even listen in the first place. And I'm pretty sure those who do will respond with gun threats.
Later That Same Life is written, voiced, and produced by Larry Fedoruk. LarryFedoruk37@gmail.com. Subscribe to Larry's podcast YouTube channel. Get automatic notifications with each new episode.